I wanted to talk about a YouTuber named Every Frame a Painting.
Oh yeah, he's back, baby.
He's back with 7 years. He vanished and he's back. This guy, for if you've never seen Every Frame, everybody out there knows who he is. But if you haven't seen Tony from Every Frame a Painting, this guy does little video essays, 7 to 15 minutes, not normally longer than that. I think the first one I ever saw was the comedy of Edgar Wright, the visual comedy of Edgar Wright, using Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz to describe. But there's an amazing one on Buster Keaton, and there's one on the Spielberg One Take, and there's one about chairs and set design. All these little meditations on the ways that you can use film language to tell your story, with really rich examples pulled from some of the greatest directors and greatest cinematographers. And he talks about editing, of course, and it's all very accessible, and he just demonstrates it so clearly.
Yeah, even the scene breakdowns, like the Silence of the Lamb, like just breaks down one scene, and it's great. Or he goes through like Chuck Jones animation. They were some of the best YouTube 9 years ago,
Like affiliated film professors must be showing this dude's YouTube videos in classes all the time. Wouldn't you say that the average normie, when they watch a show, they watch a movie, whatever, I don't think that most people have had it explained to them what elevated artful film looks like. But I think they know it in their heart when they see it. Your brain did.
Like just shooting for coverage, and that's about it.
I think one of my favorite things, he borrows from international film, from movies from the 30s, from he really doesn't leave anybody out because everybody has a contribution.
And I think he basically took a 7-year break because he was working for the Criterion Collection.
Oh, was he? Oh, he deserves it.
Yeah. Just recently released a video of the sustained two-shot.
Yeah, so he and everybody should just go watch it for themselves, but he opens the video by saying, like, all right, so you're out on location, and then the sun starts doing things unpredictable. It starts going down faster than you expected or whatever. And you got to get your scene before it's nighttime one way or another. And he's like, and one of the most efficient ways you might do that is in just a sustained two-shot. In other words, two-shot would be two people maybe standing side by side, or two people in the frame having a dialogue sequence with no cuts. He talks about all of the ways that can service your story. Because whenever you're planning any cinematography, the primary question should be, how is the shot servicing my story? And they do it at the same time that they're problem solving, with things like sun. They describe it in the video as, this is the actor's shot. The only party that has the ability to shape the rhythm and the pacing of the scene is now the actor, because you can't edit your way around this thing. If your whole scene is two people in a frame, like Clerks or something, he actually didn't use Clerks as an example, but it's a fine example. Kevin Smith did all those two shots for budgetary purposes. It was like,
right,
go.
It's very theatrical. It's like almost stage play, Yeah.
If you watch movies from like the 1910s, right, like before they had figured out what even a movie is, like they knew they had motion picture film. A lot of it is shot two-dimensionally. It's shot as though you're watching, there's a proscenium arch over the actors or something. But he's saying like this can be visually dynamic as well. I know that for me, because I shoot low budget stuff and it's normally rushed or we have limited time, the way to leave the set with footage that you can work with is to cover it more, right? Yeah. That's your safety. So if you have clean singles, right, that would be, if it's two people talking, then both of them don't have each other in the frame. Now you've made your editing life much easier because you don't have to worry about the continuity of the other person disrupting the other shot. So the editor can shape the pace of that scene any way they want. I've been in situations where I'm thinking of the bar scene in Having Fun Up There with Hannah and John Ryan, like with the Rocky painting. We showed up that day and we had been shooting for 7 days and we had knocked out a lot of the most important scenes in the movie. And they just like really didn't know their lines for this scene. Like we just needed to get through it. The only way to efficiently get through it was for them to like learn the next few and record that. And then know, you could never do a sustained two-shot because they just didn't fucking know their lines. Here, I'll throw some advice out to anybody who is a filmmaker. It's something I see all the time that makes for a really inefficient shoot, or I used to see it on film sets. I don't know if kids even have film sets anymore. They're all just making YouTube
on your
content.
TikTok sets.
Yeah. An actor will flub and they'll take it from the top. Go back a little bit further so that you're not like in this stuttering situation, but do not accidentally retake things you already have a million times. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, because a lot of times, and thinking about this two-shot thing, when you were filming with film, a lot of times actors would have time to rehearse, and you would want to rehearse because film is such a limited quantity. So that when the time is short that to film and you only have certain things, the actors could do a two-shot because they've been rehearsing it. In digital, I don't think anybody rehearses anymore.
There's the film school we went to. They still shoot on motion picture film for some of their classes, and they have Steenbeck still that, a 100-year-old guy or something. He fixes those if they ever break.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it's a lot to maintain a film program at this point. Although we're at the point where like students are interested. They want to be involved with that. I remember we shot the short film Vibes. I was a producer on this movie Vibes, and I ended up like half directing it. And we showed up to a porn store, and we needed to get in and out, pardon the pun. And that was where I kind of figured out like, all right, well, here's what you do. Start with a very wide shot, like something that just captures like the full scope of motion for all the actors. So if it's like a big room that everybody's going to be moving through, like get a wide shot that basically shows you that whole room. You'll by doing that, you'll accomplish a couple of things. One, you'll technically have a minimally viable version of the scene. Yes. You'll have the whole scene in like a play form, if nothing else. You'll always have a safe shot to cut out to, because as you have continuity problems or you're trying to solve puzzles, you'll always have something wide to jump to retreat to. For comedies, for drama, there's almost always a reason to go to something very wide, very distant from the actors. Almost always.
I remember there was a period of time when DSLRs first came out of the scene. Everybody kept using like portrait lenses and like high aperture, so that everything was close-ups and everything was high depth of field or low depth of field.
Yeah, everybody's showing off the fact that they were using a real lens.
Yeah, it was like, okay, I see that there's a face and the background's blurred, but where are we?
Yeah, there were so many. I don't know if this is still popular, but there were so many short films that were like handheld rack focusing around a character where there's like an out of focus city behind them and they're feeling lonely in the city or something. There's so much of that. So you get your wide and then you just pick your highest priority shot next. You're like, all right, so who owns the scene of these two, if it's two characters? Like who's the one that their performance drives the scene? Well, then make sure you get all their stuff and then flip it all around and get the other person's stuff and get out of there. So you start with like, what's the absolute minimum thing I would need to have something called a scene? And then you kind of punch in. And the other nice thing about getting that initial wide is the chances that the actors are going to flub or make mistakes in the first couple of go-throughs is very, very, very high. And in a wide, it won't matter.
Yeah. And by the time you get to close-ups, they know what they're doing. They kind of know what the scene is. Yeah, they're more confident, and that's when you want the close-ups anyway. Yeah. So. And
then the editor can shape the pace. You'd have to do some heavy rehearsal. You could decide that your movie is the type of movie where the actor decides the pace. That's a cool movie, but that's what he's talking about with these sustained two shots. So anyway, go check out Tony, Every Frame of Painting. I love everything he's made. I've never seen anything from this YouTube channel that I didn't absolutely endorse.
So you have a two-person dialogue scene, but the sun's going down, and you only have time to get one shot. What do you do?
Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.